3, 2, 1. Recording with Dale, motherfucking Comstock. People have been telling me to stop swearing the first 5 seconds because it means I won't get monetized. Joke's on you. YouTube's never going to monetize me. I've got a flag and I'm white. It's not going to work out. But as always, the coolest podcasts are the ones that you, the listener, will unfortunately never hear. Dale always tells me the best shit before I start recording. And it's intentional, and I don't record for that reason because I don't want anything that's not supposed, whatever. Yeah, so jumping around, we talk about American Badass, Dale's book, which is badass. It's for reasons I can't tell you. Dale is the coolest man who's ever lived. Maybe one day it'll all be declassified, but Dale's book will be in the description. Stick it in the top comment. His Instagram, go follow that. It's fun as fuck. But we've gone through American Badass for the last 9 episodes from volume 1 through 9, and we've got a lot more to do. But today we're kind of taking a slight detour because when Dale and I were shooting with a mutual friend of ours a month ago, he was telling me some stories about the nuclear security, and that's something I originally learned about you. The first ever interview I watched with you last year, it was from like 5 years ago, but you're talking about nuclear security, but we've never really got into that. But to me, that's just kind of the endless pit of stories that is Dale Comstock. And Dale, for all the new people, introduce yourself, and then let's jump into it.
Yeah, all right. Hey, so welcome to the show, guys and girls. Hey, I'm an equal opportunity podcaster.
Fuck yeah.
So a little bit about myself. If you can really learn more from if you watch the first volume of the American Badass series. But I'm a former Delta Force operator, Green Beret, paratrooper, long range scout. I also was an OG paramilitary operative for about 9.5 years, and I've also worked as a mercenary, a real mercenary. I'm not talking about a Blackwater contractor, but I've worked for foreign governments to give them a special operations strike capability. I've owned 4 companies. My first one was Global Security Consultants Incorporated. Sold that in 2004, opened it in 2001, prior to 9/11. And right place, right time, doors opened up, made a lot of money. Like I said, G4S bought it in 2004. 2005, I reincorporated Risk Control Institute and sold that to a company called Intrepid circa 2011. And then that's when I also got discovered in the Hollywood thing, right? So I didn't want to go to Hollywood, but ended up on Discovery Channel, then ended up on NBC, FX, and started, acting, blah, blah, blah. And then ended up from there, kind of realized that Hollywood's probably not a good fit for me. Not that I can't do it, because I've done it, I've proved it, but it's just that it's a different culture, man, that I was raised in, And I was raised in a conservative military culture, and being in a liberal culture, it just was a bad fit. And so anyways, I was actually invited to stay in Los Angeles. I could be on a ton of different shows, TV shows. And I was told that I could probably be the next Danny Trejo. But I'm not as good looking as him, so I'm not sure that would work. But,
Dale, shut up. You're beautiful, Dale. I don't want to hear it. You're beautiful.
Well, anyways, I ended up in Hong Kong, running a bodyguard detail for a Chinese multi-billionaire investment banker. And then my travels just took me finally to Indonesia, and where I reside for about this last 6.5 years. Half of that time up in Jakarta, and then the last 3 years down in Bali. So I have a home here in Florida, which is where I'm calling you from now. And I have a home in Bali and 2 companies in Bali now. One of them's a security company, and the other one is actually my wife's catfish farm. So here I am. And that's kind of a little preview of who I am. And I do have a lot of experience in the nuclear industry, as we started out talking about. That's actually how I got my start in the security world after I left the Army in 2001. Before 2001, I was kind of at a crossroads, like, okay, what am I going to do when I go into the afterlife, into the civilian world? And, I thought, man, there's probably not a great need for a trigger puller, a Green Beret Delta Force operator, and my skill sets, I don't know if I didn't think they were, what's the word I'm looking for, transferable to the civilian world. But I thought, well, security kind of aligns with that. So I don't want to work as a security guard or really work for anybody as a security manager, because back then there was no money in it prior to 9/11. And so I decided, well, I'll just start my own security company. And that's kind of what happened. And then, talk about serendipity, man. 9/11 happened just as I finished my master's degree in business and organizational security management. And the moon, the stars, everything just aligned perfectly, all at the right time. And man, I was off to the races. It actually started with, well, let me back up just a little bit. So as I was making my transition out of the military, I realized that I'd already been promoting the company, but I wasn't getting any bites. There was no interest because there was no reason, right? So at the time, the nuclear industry was in a sad shape as far as security was concerned. It was horrible, man. In fact, there was no security. Let's just put it that way. And so I was campaigning in the business, but reality is that security is considered, there's no ROI on it, no return on investment, right? There's no, security is just basically throwing money at something that's just, it doesn't pay off until there's an incident, right? And then, so nobody was willing to spend any extra money for anything related to consulting, blah, blah, blah. But so sure enough, 9/11 happens. And then that's when the door swung wide open. So prior to that, so I had to make this transition. I needed a job. So I ended up working in a glass factory down in Charlotte, North Carolina. A company called Guardian Glass, a Fortune 250 company. And anyways, I worked for them for about 3 months. Be honest with you, I hated it for a lot of reasons, but on the good side, on the good note, was I actually learned a lot about civilian, about corporations and all the OSHA crap and all the rules and the unions and anyways, so that was the upside to it. The downside was, we were in an industrial park. Basically, they recruited and hired, basically local area people. They made a base amount of money with really no pay raise in sight. And, they were just basically worker bees. And most of them were, high school graduates or less, and only people that had college educations were those in a supervisor management role. So anyways, I took that job, and after I took it, I realized, man, this is going to suck, because we worked 12-hour shifts, and it was a rotating shift. So 2 weeks you work days, and then 2 weeks you work nights, but it's always 12 hours, right? And so you talk about, screwing up your sleep pattern. And then it was like herding cats every day, people, they tended not to really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like, I make this amount of money an hour, and that's all I make. And so this is all I'm going to do for that. Right. And nobody took the initiative that I was used to in the military. And, it was really kind of frustrating. I'd come into the office and there's garbage laying all over the floor, when we change shifts, and not in the trash can. And I look at my guys, go, hey, somebody got to pick that up. I'm not picking it up. Last shift left it here. So what are we supposed to do? Leave it here for them the next shift, right? And so there was that mindset that was, it wasn't the same as in the military. The military, somebody would have taken the initiative and picked it up. I wouldn't even have to tell them to do that and just get her done, right?
Yeah.
So the corporate world was definitely an eye opener for me. But and I realized that although I'm learning some things, it was not my cup of tea, man. And so 9/11 happened, and literally the next day I got a phone call from Chicago, from Exelon Energy, and as I understand it, Exelon is the largest nuclear power provider in the United States, third largest in the world. They actually had, I don't know about now, but at the time they had 11 facilities, and I believe 17 reactors. And so they flew with me up there, my partner up there. Said, listen, here's the deal. Our original consultant, he got on CNN and he threw the entire industry under the bus and talked about how unsafe they were, and the level of training or no training security officers had, and so right away he just P&G'd himself. It was a terrible thing he did to himself, but he did it to himself. And so we, they said, are you guys want it? Say, hell yeah, we want it, right? So and so essentially we had no other competitors in the industry at the time. There were none, and so we really cleaned up. Our first client was 3 Mile Island, and yeah, that was the first client. And man, we went there, and and so up to this point, the standards for security were like almost non-existent, right? And that wasn't just 3 Mile Island; it was every nuclear power plant in the United States, right? Because I don't think anybody envisioned 9/11, that we could be attacked on our own soil, and, by an enemy that's actually becoming very sophisticated, right? That was actually a very sophisticated attack.
Insanely sophisticated.
Yeah. So now the realization came, we got a freaking, nuclear power plants are legitimate targets. And so, and I won't point out any one particular nuclear power plant. So as we traveled around, it was insane how unsecure the plants were. And I'll give you an example. They have what's called a power block. It's a large building, and within it you have your reactors. Sometimes everything is all together, and you have your turbines, your generators, and all that stuff. But your control centers, control rooms, and basically the doors were propped open. Guys were going out and smoking a cigarette, dropping it, and then going inside, right? And so, they might have one chain link fence that went around the facility, and but there was nothing to keep a determined adversary out. And I would tell you that probably every nuclear power plant at that time, not now, but at that time, pre 9/11, could have been breached. Now, okay, so everybody's going, "Oh my God, this, you mean you could have a nuclear meltdown?" No, that's not what that means. What that means is, a potential enemy had the opportunity to penetrate a nuclear power plant, and if they could hold it down, which they could at the time, they had all the time in the world to do whatever they need to do, right? Sabotage, whether it was take over the control rooms, the emergency shutdown, valve, all the,
you take your time to figure it out.
Yeah, they could have figured it out. But I will tell you that the enemy, if they're sophisticated enough to fly, 757s, then they're sophisticated enough to know how to set up. They'll know what a nuclear power plant looks like. They know where the target sets are, and they'll already have a plan in place to come in. Otherwise, it's a suicide mission, right? And so, I'm in this one facility. We here's the funny part, right? So I go up to the reactor door. And right on the other side of this, a solid steel door, is one of the reactors, and like maybe 15, 20 feet away, so the security manager was a great guy. Actually, he's a great friend of mine now. He's walking us down. He goes, "Okay, this door goes into here. This is like the last barrier to keep, someone from touching a reactor, right?" Mm-hmm. And he goes, "How long would it take you to get through that door?" And I looked at it, and it was a solid steel door and a metal frame, and I sized it up. I go, I could probably get through it in about 8 to 10 seconds. And he's like, "What?" He goes, "Impossible." And I go, "No, it's 8 to 10 seconds." He goes, "How do you know?" I go, "Well, because I blew the same kind of door up in Modelo Prison, right?" And
P factor.
Actually, the door I blew up in Modelo Prison was actually bigger and more sturdier, right? It was a double door, and so I made short work of that, right?
I've done it,
and I've only been a few feet away from the blast when I did it, and so he's like, "Holy shit!" He goes, "The last guy that came in, which is a guy that PNG'd himself, who actually had a SEAL with him as a assistant consultant." They get this ridiculous amount of time to breach, right? It's like 3 minutes, right, to get through there. And I'm like, geez, they thought they're gonna have to do multiple attacks on it, and I go, "No." And I said, "Actually, let me look. Let me show you something, man." I said, "Forget the explosive. Let's forget about attacking this door." So I'm facing the door. I take 2 steps to the right. I go, "Now, you see this corrugated tin wall? I'm going to take this fire axe and just chop right through it in a couple of seconds."
Yeah.
And right, they're like, "Oh," they never thought about it. That, oh shit, they got a fucking corrugated tin wall, right?
Yeah.
Right, with a steel frame door holding a solid steel door. But the weakest part of that whole structure was the wall. It was thin. It was paper thin.
Yeah.
Right. If I had a fire axe, I just chop right through it, And
if I wanted to break into the apartment below me, I couldn't get through the door. But what I would do is I'd take an axe and I'd go through the drywall ceiling.
Exactly.
Like,
right.
Like, just use your brain and just step right outside, and it's
Well, that's why I said they were woefully unprepared, because money wasn't really allocated for security assessments. And a lot of times their security expertise was in house, which was very limited. and you know, is their best guess. And unfortunately for, you know, especially in the corporate world and corporate and civilian security managers that don't have a military experience or background, they don't know what they don't know, right? So therein was the key. So when I said that, man, it's like, oh shit, you know, alarms went off, you know, and then it just got worse. You know, it just got worse and worse the more we started inspecting. And I said, you know how easy this is? I said, you know, I can get a couple of, you know, about 10 third graders and march through here, you know, unopposed, man, if I wanted to. But I'll give you some examples, man. So what I'm not doing is I don't want to throw the nuclear industry under the bus now, because they've come a long way. They do have a standard that's set by the NRC. And basically, it's called a design basis threat, the DBT, right? And it says, okay, you have to defend against X amount of bad guys with this kind of capability, these types of weapon systems, this amount of explosives, insider assistance, you know. So it's all laid out, man, right? But to a you know, reasonably, because you could make it so that no nuclear power plant could ever secure itself by going, okay, you have to defend against an army of 500 people going to come through. You can't, right? We're done.
Yeah.
It has to be a reasonable amount based on current TTPs, tactics, techniques, procedures of, you know, terrorists and things like that. And what would be a reasonable force to bring in, you know, in the United States without being compromised. And actually, you would be probably better off with a smaller organization going in the nuclear power plant than trying to come up with a large organization, because the larger it gets, the more command controls issues you have, coordination, you know, synchronization, all those things that are needed to deliberately, you know, and effectively assault an objective. So sometimes you have better C2 command and control with a smaller element. So, but, you know, like I said, they were woefully unprepared. And I'd like to think that I've helped in a lot of ways to make the nuclear industry much more robust. I came up with some great concepts and ideas that are still in play today. How do I know that? Because I still have, you know, associate with some of the security personnel in the industry. In fact, one of them right now is one of my clients, a coaching client of mine that I'm teaching. I'm actually putting him through a security consulting course where he's learning everything about, you know, explosives, you know, how they work, you know, RE factors, all the, you know, the 101 version of it. You know, he's learning basically light and heavy weapons, familiarization, application. You know, he's doing executive protection. He's doing high-speed technical driving. So I got a lot of subjects that I'm teaching to this particular guy. But but anyways, so, you know, back then I can remember we would come in and me and my business partner, who I don't have anything good to say about, but anyways, money changes people too, by the way. That's why I said that, because people lose their mind over money, unfortunately, and they do stupid things and they forget their loyalties, their friendships, and it's amazing how money can corrupt people. But so anyways, so I remember going to nuclear power plants, and it was so easy, man. You know, my company, we spent about 7 months, about 6 months at one facility. And they probably ran up a bill of about $1.4 million, right, for consulting services, because anytime the NRC comes in and they do an audit, right, which usually lasts about 3 days, and they actually do what we call penetration testing, and basically they challenge the security strategy. And anywhere in this strategy, if they discover basically a major or minor flaw, right, in the system, depending on the severity, they will actually shut the nuclear power plant down until it's rectified. And just depends on how problematic it is. I mean, it could be like, damn, it could be a while before we get this fixed. We might have to rearrange our entire security construct or architecture, right? We might have to adjust the whole damn thing now, or we might have to add or remove you know, basically maybe obstacles or structures, you know, so in order to tighten up the security thing, right? Maybe there's a gap in the security that, you know, a barbed wire fence is not gonna mitigate. For example, I went to one facility it was on a large river, and they had a problem with the intake valve, basically where water was coming in and from the river. And basically the belief was by the NRC that a swimmer could come in or a diver could come in and basically climb, go through this little rat line and stuff and enter the facility. And so I was brought in, our company was brought in. Actually, they brought in 2 different consultants companies. And one of them was G4S at the time to assess this thing. And we all concluded there's no way a human being could get through this thing. Just no way. And one of the problem with the NRC is sometimes they're too proud to admit when they're wrong. And so they kept saying, no, a guy can do it. I'm like, who are you guys to challenge me? So what I did was I brought in some of my friends from SEAL Team 6. I said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to actually dive this thing.
Yeah. And
I'm going to bring in some SEALs and let's see if they can penetrate it. Right. And they couldn't. And so the NRC wouldn't accept that answer. And I'm like, no, these are the best diver swimmers in the world. If anybody's going to get through there, it's them. Right. I can tell you, it's not going to be some Arab from out, Saudi Arabia, Al Qaeda guy that's never seen water before that's going to do it. Right. Even if he's had some training. So they, instead of them conceding, go, no, you're right. It's like, it was kind of stupid, man. And unfortunately, it cost the facility lots of money. I mean, just my company alone, over almost $1.5 million, and then consulting fees, not to include lost revenue, shareholders' confidence, public confidence, all these things that come along with that, right? It can be very damaging, and so it was almost like we had a trial, and the NRC brought their experts in, which, by the way, none of them were military guys, Navy or SF or anything like that. But there's somehow they thought that intellectually they know more than guys with experience, right? Or more than guys with intellectual experience, right? And both, right? So and physical experience. And it was almost like a dick measuring contest. It's like, come on, So we advocated for the client, and these other guys were advocating for the NRC. And I can tell you, it's a losing battle. It was then. There was no way they were going to concede. And we realized right away, you guys are going to get fined a lot of money, even though you're not wrong, because they're too proud to say they were wrong, right? So there's a lot of politics, intertwined in all this. And then, so the best thing you can do is is try to help the client win the battle based on, we came in, we did math with these guys. We did charge calculations. And I always liked when I got to these plants, they had in one particular engineering company that would do blast analysis, right? If, a semi-tractor trailer with, 50,000 pounds of explosives and it parked the truck right here, what would it do? Right. And they did all the computer stuff, forensics. They would do this blast wave, this and that and that. And then I would come and go, yeah, well, that's nice, but no, that won't happen like that because that's not how explosives work, right?
Yeah.
How do you know? Because I actually worked with explosives for 35 years.
I blew the door off because I blew the fucking door off of Modelo Prison. God damn it!
Yeah.
That's why.
No. So there's always, everybody's, just they don't want to share the rice bowl. They just, it's just a lot of politics. But I've gone into facilities where that's happened. I've gone into. And the other problem is, and I have another guy I was coaching, I believe it was yesterday, and I was telling him about the world of security. He goes, the problem is most security managers don't know what they don't know. And so if you're ever thinking about becoming a security consultant, actually, if you're thinking about becoming any kind of a consultant or in business, the key to success is anticipating the next paradigm, being able to go, I see what's going to happen. The only way you can really see what's going to happen confidently is if you have experience, right? So my when I go in, for me, the winning argument every time is I've been doing this most of my life. I know exactly how the bad guys think, and I know exactly what they're capable of or not capable of. And I can also go in and go, this is going to be a problem in the future. How do you know? Because this is how I would do it. Well, how do you know you would do it that way? Because if I was watching this facility and analyzing it, right, it wouldn't take much for me to go, okay, Carver Matrix or whatever I'm going to use and go, okay, this is my attack strategy and I will win. So I'll give you an example of that real quick. 3 years ago, that was about 3 years ago. So no, it was actually longer than that. It was about 4 years ago. I was in Jakarta and I was working canines, and I had this idea. I go, looking at the security guards at every facility, there's a security guard at every establishment in Indonesia. Literally everyone, hotels, malls, they're all right there. They're checking you when you go through, and they look great. They don't have any weapons. They're all unarmed. And it really, somebody once told me, goes, yeah, there's security, but it's really just so everybody has a job, right? Because like, wow. And I saw how bad the security was. It really was zero security. In fact, if you drove a car, and you can drive a car in any checkpoint in Indonesia, they'll open the door, look and say, hey, how's it going? And close the door, lift the trunk and slam the trunk. They have no idea what they're looking for, right? If you ask them, what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for explosives. Describe me what explosives look like, and not, the Wile E. Coyote.
I was about to say
dynamite sticks, right?
With the clock on it.
Yeah. So, and they don't know. And they of course they don't know, because the level of training it requires, it's just not, affordable, I guess. And there is a requirement over there that what they call a SATPAM meets a certain minimum level of training. And so, and I was telling everybody, I go, what's going to happen? I said, the days of car bombs are still here. I said, but that's kind of becoming cliche. What's becoming in vogue now is active shooters with suicide vests, and just suicide bombers on motorcycles. I said, that's what's going to happen next. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, yeah. I said, I can see a guy running a checkpoint with a motorcycle and a backpack full of explosives. And he said, there ain't no way you can stop him. You don't have guns. You can't run faster than him. He's going to ride that bike right into the venue and detonate himself, right? So I started training dogs to take out motorcycle riders. If a guy ran a checkpoint and there was a security officer there with a dog, usually Malinois because they're pretty fast, boom, he'd send the dog, he'd take the guy off the motorcycle. If he's going to blow up, at least let him blow up right there and outside the venue. Well, it was probably a year later or less, at a Catholic church down in, I think it was Surabaya. A guy came back. He was a radicalized, Indonesian, went to ISIS and came back from Syria, and then basically radicalized his whole family, his wife, his two daughters, and his two teenage sons, right? And he basically built TATP pipe bombs. I have actually pictures of them, and they were really professionally done. I mean, I got to give them kudos. Those were nice, right? Those were really attractive pipe bombs. That's what explosive guys talk about. But anyway, anyways, he filled up some backpacks. He told his two boys to take the backpack, get on a motorcycle, and run through the gate of the church and drive right up to the front and blow yourself up, right? Now, the Catholic Church in Indonesia are, they're mostly Chinese Catholics, right?
Yeah.
And then he had the mom basically strap a body bomb on with the two little girls in her arm, and she went to another church and blew herself up while during mass, right? So, and then the father was still at the house when the house got raided. He was trying to, handle some TATP, which is very, it's very sensitive, man, very volatile. I mean, you mishandle it, it'll go off of your hand. It's very unstable. And that's actually what happened when they raided him. That thing went off and blew him to pieces, right? But the boys blew themselves up in the gate. I've got video of that. It's pretty bad bombing. I don't have pictures of a video of the mom blowing herself up, but that happened. So that's an example of, anticipating the next paradigm. I saw that coming in with the motorcycles, and bam, it happened, right? At least my dogs were being trained for it, but it didn't. That was not my facility securing. So backing up, back to the security world, it's the same thing. Even though there's a design basis threat, and usually military guys are weighing in on that. They're telling you, well, this is, threat capabilities, blah, blah, blah. It becomes a game where an exercise where the NRC and others go, oh, can we really tell the client to protect against this? Because that would cost like bazillions of dollars to reinforce, and I'll give you an example. Like, for example, if you took what's called a BRE, ballistic rated enclosure, it's basically a guard shack that's bulletproof or bullet resistant. Well, it's only gonna be resistant up to a certain point.
Yeah.
And then you got to ask yourself, well, what could, can I get something big enough to bore a hole through that and kill the guy inside? And the answer is absolutely yes. I used to buy armor-piercing incendiary ammunition, 50 caliber, off the internet, right? And no shit, right? I actually bought it off the internet, and we did testing with it, and it's like, okay, this is just going to go through your BREs like butter,
Yeah.
So what do you do? So that's where we come in, and we figure out means of mitigation, how to fix all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, and it's with any corporation. It's not just nuclear. It's hotels I work for or work under that, they don't want to spend the money on security. Why? Because there's no ROI on it. Security managers are held accountable for the budget, and actually, believe it or not, at the end of the year, I'm going to be careful how I say this because, there are hotels out there that are notorious for this. And they, the security manager or the general managers at the end of the year get a Christmas bonus. It's pretty damn big based on how much money they can save throughout the year. So they're always looking at how to shave corners on everything. And guess what gets the axe first? Security, right? It's an illusionary world. Like, okay, we have looks like good security, right? And the only people they're fooling is Joe Public that doesn't know better, right? He looks around and goes, "Yeah, it looks like they got a lot of security here. I feel pretty safe." But for the informed, for the consultant, for the terrorists that know their business, they're going, "This is easy," right? Yeah. I mean, they can see through it, so they're not going to be dissuaded by that. They're not. The only people they're gonna, this is working for are, naive civilians,
the people who aren't gonna attack.
Yeah, exactly. I'll make that same statement for everything, man. Airports, security, globally, everything, right? It's almost always just image, and there's no substance to it, right? It's the perception. We got tight security, but any guy that's worth his salt as a security consultant knows how to bypass all that, right? And by the way, as a security consultant, that doesn't mean I'm smarter than my adversary. They could be just as smart, right? So it becomes a chess game, figuring out what may they do and how can I prevent that and make them do something else, right? But unfortunately, in the security world, we're always one step behind the terrorists. They do something, go, "Ah, shit, didn't see that coming. Let me fix this," right? So it never happens again. And the terrorists already think of another way to do it, right? So we're always like one step behind. The idea is to get one step in front of them, right? And make them go a different direction, right? Yeah. That's what you want to do. So the nuclear industry, I like doing security because it's very challenging. It's not something that anybody, I think, can do. And the reason why, when you go into a nuclear power plant, the way my approach is, first of all, I want to do an assessment. I want to look at what's this facility look like. I'll walk it down, outside, inside, the owner controlled area. I look at everything and go, okay, this is what it looks like. This is where I am. Second step is I look at the blueprints, right? There's a lot to be learned from blueprints, right? And understand the blueprints and also understanding, okay, based on these blueprints, there might be an issue over here with this. And then you have to analyze basically their response strategy. That is, how do their security officers deploy in an emergency, right? In a breach or whatever, right? And so think about this for a minute. Nuclear security guards cost money. Okay. And so normally you have at least 3 different shifts that you're paying for, right? If they're working 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts, but it's usually at least 3 different shifts, and I would say that probably an average nuclear power plant has 20, 25 security guards on duty at any one time, covering down on some of these big ass facilities, right? And so you have to strategically place them, their positions so that you have overlapping security, right? And they can respond to any kind of a breach or emergency without leaving a gaping hole behind them. And therein lies the problem, because every security guard you add to a detail, right, is money, costs big money, right? And so back then they were making about $50,000 a year, if I remember right, but it probably costs 3 times as much just to have that guy on duty after all the other expenses go along with it, the uniforms and training and the investment, So one security guard is pretty damn expensive, and if you have them working, so they want to do the mostest with the leastest. Just get bare minimum amount of security that can cover the area. But the problem is, you lose one guy, you've got a huge degradation.
Now the whole thing is sacrificed.
Yeah, you lose 2 guys, it's game on, man. And so, but that's how they operate, because it comes down to the bottom line. They got to save money, and not throw so much money into security that they're still making profit. Don't get me wrong. But, I understand, like a nuclear power plant, they got a lot of shit to pay for, repair, there's a lot of expensive stuff in a nuclear power plant to make it work. So it's always a budgetary issue as well. And my job as a consultant was to come in and try to give them the best security at the best price, right? That was the goal, you know, and try to figure out where can we do something, and you know, with a multi-use, you know, capability, right? So, and so that was the challenge, is being able to do all that, and then you had to vet it and verify it, right? So if we created a security system where we altered it, we had to proof it, we had to test it, to include things like run times, like literally running. Right from this gate to this point takes, you know, 5 seconds with a backpack on, you know, and from here to here takes like 12 seconds with a backpack on, you know. And so we had run times, you know, and basically it's all laid out on like a blueprint. Actually, what we had was elevated. We had levels of the buildings, right, with blueprints on the flooring, covered with plexiglass, right, and you had run times and markers, so you could act, it was almost like a chess game. Okay. So you could actually on a we call them tabletop drills, you could actually start testing times and run times. You go, I'm not sure about this run time. Send the fastest dude out with a backpack and run it for time. Let's see what it comes up to. You know,
you know what you could do is, man, you actually, I don't know. Maybe this is a good idea. Maybe we should spice it out. Is, man, if you made that into like, if you outsource that to like a simple game, just like a mobile game on your phone, you could outsource that to the public. Some friends are going to try to get the high score. Well, now you have just outsourced that to 10,000 people. They've just given you 10,000 man hours for free, and you've figured out, right? It's kind of like what the conspiracy about like the 10-year challenge on Facebook, when people are like, that was then, this is now. Everyone's like, yeah, what it is it's free AI farming. The AI is learning how people age for free.
Right,
so you have everyone on Facebook going, 10-year challenge, that was then, this is now. The AI is getting billions of dollars of R&D for free. Man, maybe if you turn that into a simple game, like a maze game on an iPad, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you just get in jail. I don't know. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, the blueprints are kind of confidential.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay, well, fuck me. Yeah, I forgot. The whole,
But actually, what's interesting is, so what I used to do is I would download satellite imagery, right? Google Earth, and blow it up, you know, in color and black and white of the entire facility, the AO. So I had basically a satellite map imagery of the target, the facility, right, which I use to help me plan defense strategies, you know, based on potential avenues of approach by the adversary. So that's what makes it interesting, is it's a mind game. You got to understand. Oh, the other part you have to understand thoroughly is NRC DBZ, design-based threat, all the regulations. It's actually, it's legal, right? This is, you know, regulatory stuff that the plants must meet these standards, right? For everything. Bad guy with this type of weapon system. If this goes down, you know, for example, you have most nuclear power plants have 2 control centers, a primary and alternate. They have backup shutdown systems. So they have, you know, these redundancies built in. So what if they compromise this thing and this thing, you know, and you're running on this thing, and this side of the plant is being breached with a diversion over here, right? It's like, damn, a lot of shit going on, right? And so you have to be prepared for all that. And you don't know what the attack strategy is until the NRC comes in. And they do the same thing. They do their assessment and they look at the facility and go, okay, this is the way I would do it. And then they come up with their attack plan. And then you do a tabletop drill. It's like a chess game to see if it would work. And then a lot of times we'll go outside and actually do it for real, right? With run times and, you know, maneuvering people to see if, again, it's valid, right? The results from the tabletop drill. So it's actually kind of cool. It's a mind game. But if you don't understand the regulations, law, and you don't understand the design-based threat, and you really don't understand layered security, okay, because that's kind of one of the things I brought in, was a layered type security. It's almost a 3-dimensional security from outside to inside, from top to down, and everything had to be synergistic, overlapping, you know, and supporting each other, right, and every other area. So but, you know, I can remember one time I was at a nuke plant. They brought us in for one issue, and I addressed it. And I forget, while I was addressing that, I'm looking at this. It was actually a spent fuel pool is what it was. So they have these gigantic, you know, massive swimming pools, like 40, 50 feet high, right?
Yeah.
And what they do is they take the spent fuel rods and they insert them in there, right? Because they're still hot. basically keep them in the pool until it takes a while for them to cool off and all that kind of stuff, but they're still radioactive. And so, and then what'll happen is DOE will come in at some point unannounced, and then they'll pick it all up and take it off, right, and dump it. So I'm sitting there, I'm going, to these guys, I go, what is this? And spent fuel raw pool. I go, okay, these things, are they inert? No, he goes, they're still radioactive, and but not to the point where they're doing them any good, creating steam and energy.
Yeah.
But they're still radioactive, right? They're still dangerous. And I go, okay, well, so I'm standing and I'm looking, and there's a big, gigantic warehouse door. It's kind of in a warehouse, right? The doors are open, and I could see right out to a chain link fence, to the river, and that was it. And it was outside of their controlled area, right? So the secure area is kind of on the outside. In fact, a lot of times these spent fuel rods are in containers, and what's the word I'm looking for? Types of not a coffin, but basically it's kind of like these coffins,
like the metal.
Yeah. And they're basically securing those things outside, wherever in a parking platform area. Anyways, so I go, so let me get this straight. I said, we got a swimming pool with, I don't know how many gallons of water here. I mean, it's enough in here for Shamu the whale to swim around and dive and stuff, right? This is big. And it's going down at least 40 feet. And they got spent fuel rods in here. I go, and you don't think this is something you need to secure? He goes, well, why? He goes, what are you going to do with it? He goes, you can't really get the rods out. He goes, what are you going to do with it? I go, well, I'll tell you what I'll freaking do with it. I said, if I can just walk in here, which apparently I can, I said, I'll just lower satchel charge about down to 35 feet. Okay. And with, whatever X amount of explosives. And I mean, I know the number, but for security, I won't say it, but I'll load the explosives. And I already did the calculations. I already know that, when you lower explosives in the water, the pressure from the water actually amplifies the effect of the explosive, makes them more powerful, right? And I go, so this will be easy. I said, I'll basically lower it right along the length of the pool wall, okay, and then I'll put a timer on it, time fuse, or I can command detonate. It doesn't matter how I do it. And then basically I'll blow the side of this pool out. All this water and these radioactive rods are going to splash out and roll right into the river.
Game over. Yeah.
And I said, you know what? And I'll probably kill a lot of fish, but really what's going to happen down the river, I'm going to scare the shit out of a lot of people. Right.
You're going to destroy. Yeah. I mean, that's going to fuck up the local economy.
And that was my point. I said, as a terrorist, I don't have to kill you. I just have to scare you. Right. Yeah. And that's the whole point of this thing, because people are very gullible and naive. And guess what? COVID proved that. COVID has proven that, how basic, gullible, and naive and afraid people are, from a virus with a 99.76% survivability rate. I mean, you have a better chance now of dying from the cold. Yet, I see girls on the beach sunbathing in bikinis with a damn mask on their face. They've lost all rational thinking. They stopped thinking about
it.
They
didn't have it. They didn't have it in the first place. Let's be clear.
No, they just do it, right? And it's amazing how many people, is a vast majority of the American population, is so easily intimidated because they don't have any experience in this other world that we call, security and combat. And, and the world of death and killing, man, they live this sheltered life. And so they always think that, the government's going to take care of them, is always looking out for them. Not so. And so, again, as a terrorist with that knowledge, especially now, it's like, man, I don't have to kill nobody. I can scare people into compliance, right? Let their imagination, I'll use their imagination against them. And so therein is an example, right? And so as soon as I did that, man, all alarms went off in the nuclear industry. Literally on the spot, they put out a public policy, said, fix it now. Every one of them has to be secured. Whatever it takes, get her done, right? And so on one hand, I'm like feeling pretty good that, hey, I did something good for you guys. On the other hand, they're all looking at me like, you piece of shit. Now we got to spend now we got to spend more money, right? But hey, I'm doing my job, and I'm pointing out things that I see are problematic, and that's what I do, and that's what I get paid for. So there's a lot of stuff that I did, but the industry was, started, listening. They started bringing in their own. They started hiring in-house consultants, with a security or special forces background, got smart, man. You need that, right? Because anytime you alter your security plan anyway, you move a security guard from here to there, you got to relook the whole security system. Did I just now affect everything, right?
Yeah.
And because it's so tight, it was so tight. And but here's the bad news, right? For everybody that's listening out there, all security can be breached. It doesn't matter what it is. If I'm protecting a principal, okay, if I want them bad enough, I'll get them. Somebody will get them, right? All we can do is be a deterrent and dissuade the threat. But it's got to be a real, it's got to be a real defense, right? That the bad guys will recognize is that, right? Because if he goes, that's bullshit, right? Like the security guards that are unarmed at the gate. Why are you checking my car? What are you going to do if you find something? I'm just going to shoot you in the face and drive in anyways, right?
Yeah,
I'm the bad guy.
Detonate right there. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
You clearly don't give a fuck. Yeah.
No, exactly. Right. And so, that's sadly, again, it comes back to it's always an economic decision, a business decision about money. And I will tell you this, sadly, and I'm not talking about the nuclear industry right now, because they are doing what they need to do. But they have limitations, man. I'm confident I could breach a nuclear power plant and get in. I've done it as part of their perimeter testing. I've gone around and challenged their systems. That's what I'm supposed to do, to see if I can get in. I've breached several nuclear power plants with some of the most simplest tools you can imagine. I mean, literally, like, it was insane. I've actually penetrated active alarm systems and e-fields, electronic fields that should have alarmed as I was penetrating them, but because of my strategy, I was able to get through them. Right. So I'm pretty good at it. And by the way, I learned how to do it. Guess how I learned how to do it? Over the internet. Literally. So I had a story. So I'm going to kind of go off a little segue again, but my partner calls me one day. He's up in a nuclear power plant talking to the security manager. And the security manager was like, "Hey, can you do perimeter testing? You got to do perimeter testing." Well, we had never done that before, right? Not for nuclear. And but we always knew what the answer. The answer was, of course we can, right? And so, if we, even though we didn't do it, we'll figure it out. Yeah. So he calls me, go, "Hey, dude, they want to know perimeter security. How long is it going to take? How much?" Right? Because he had no idea. And so right away, I'm sitting there calculating in my mind what it would take and my approach. Literally, I just came up with this idea in my head. How would I do this? I finally figured it out right away. I go, it's 3 days and it costs this much money, right? And even though I've never done one like this. So he turns around, looks at it, and goes, "Takes 3 days." And she's like, "What?" She goes, "Your other guys, your competitors, they can do it in 1 hour. These are the same guys that I put out of business initially that gave the bad calculations for the door, right? 2 minutes for an 8-second door." And he's like, "No," he goes, "it's impossible." He goes, "It's impossible." I mean, I know what was going on. It's like, okay, I'll walk around it. So I checked it out. It'll take you 1 hour, pay me money, right? We checked the block. But now we got a company that's coming in going, "No, we're going to do this like it's supposed to. And if you do it like it's supposed to, it's going to take 3 days." Like, damn. And so I did. And I have a very unique strategy. I think it's unique how to do it. It was very thorough. And in those processes, I was able to identify vulnerabilities in the perimeter and then actually attempt a penetration. And I can tell you that I've been quite successful. Once I've studied the facility, and all the weaknesses, I look at things like lighting, I look at contrast, I look at CCTV camera angles. I even consider, the CAS, what they call CAS operators, right? Which is your central alarm station. It has all the monitors and stuff on it. Look, that guy can't watch every camera either, right? And there's a way to maybe distract him and take his eyes off of you while he's looking at something else going, "What in the hell's going on over there?" Right? But anyways, so I got really good at that. And I was penetrating nuclear power plants. But even then, I remember, having security managers look at me and go, "That's impossible. How did you do that?" And I go, turn on your CCTV cameras and see if you can see what I did. And basically I was literally using 4x4s, right? And I would make like little catwalks out of them. And my partner and I would run up to the fence. He would throw on a fence. I would run up it like a cat and jump over their radar systems. right? With a backpack
Jesus.
on, an explosion, and do basically a parachute landing, fall, roll over, and just keep on going totally undetected, right? And I said, that's how easy it is, right? And so sometimes they put a lot of faith in all their electronics, but it's like any lock in the world. Every lock can be defeated. Every nuclear power security can be defeated. Any security system can be defeated, right? With a guy that's got determination, he's got skills, right? And he's determined to get through there and meet the objective, whether it takes his life, it doesn't matter, right? So, but anyways, it's an interesting field of work. I did really well at it. 2004, my company was sold to Wackenhut G4S because basically we were getting in their way, right, taking their business. So, so they bought the company up, which I went on and reincorporated in the Risk Control Institute, and then I started garnering my own service contracts with nuclear power plants for security, right? And then in 2011, I sold the company with those service contracts to another company, right? Because it was like they're selling gold now. I'm selling you freaking gold, you know. So
for everybody listening, actually, I wonder if Dale had a hand in this. Wackenhut did security out at the Nevada test site, or the Groom Lake, what we would call Area 51. Wackenhut did security there for decades, and I think they eventually lost it because they did like a red cell team drill with like a nuclear weapon without informing them that they were doing a drill. And it like went all the way up to the White House. I think they lost their contract there, but I think for like 40 or 50 years they did security out at Area 51.
One of the things you got to think about in security, man, security as a consultant, for example, you don't want to just, hey, we're gonna test this perimeter. We're not going to tell them, because first of all, that could cost your life.
Well, that's what it almost did. That's what it almost did. Right? Yeah.
But two, you don't want to embarrass the client either, right? The idea is you want to work with the client, and help them, not embarrass them, right? And so, I would never do an unannounced, security penetration. Period. Just not going to do it. Now, what I will do is tell the security manager, listen, I'm going to randomly do a surveillance on your facility. I'm gonna do some random penetration tests, some low key stuff, just to test the system, right? To try to make it better. But it's a game of politics too. Unfortunately, business is business, right? And unfortunately, the bottom line, the almighty dollar, and that's what everybody concerns themselves with the most, right? To the point where some companies, and I won't name again, like hotels and stuff like that, but would rather just rely on insurance and cover the cost if they get sued when it's all over, than really put the money up front to save people and protect people. I know that's going on right now for a fact, and I know that's where their mindset is like, man, we're going to put all this money into security that for something that may never happen, probably never happen. And, let's do the bare minimum. Let's, put up a facade, and, oh, well, shit, something happened. Well, that's why we got an insurance policy. Sadly, that's going on all the time, everywhere. Again, you can look, a bad guy can look at security. I can look at security, go, there is no security. Even though these guys are acting like security, there is no security. This whole thing is easily penetratable. And basically, with my knowledge, I can tell you, I believe, these companies that do this are being negligent. They're not even trying to be risk averse. They're just being being negligent, right? They would just rather watch your family get blown to smithereens and then pay the money out, let the insurance company pay, than they're doing the right thing. Sadly, that's the reality. And I tell you, it's even worse in foreign countries. And with foreign security managers and general managers, it's just a business, man. And we live in a different world, man. We live in a feral world now. It's a dangerous world, very dangerous world, and it's getting more and more dangerous. It's getting unhinged, man. And it's going to get even worse. And you need security more now than ever. And I think it's the moral thing to do is to make sure that you're protecting your clients, your guests, the general public, from any harm that could come to them because you have established business that somebody wants to destroy, like hotels.
Mm-hmm.
Marriott Hotel, man, they've been bombed several times, especially in Indonesia. And, and they had certain mandates in place. And I know that they revoked a lot of them because with time, it's like, oh, that was a long time ago. You don't have to worry about that no more. But, you always have to worry about it because I can tell you the terrorists are smarter than the general managers and security managers, hands down. Right? I don't care what kind of facility it is, what kind of hotel it is, for the most part, unless they've got a prior military guy in that seat who's actually got real experience and real knowledge on, again, enemy TTPs, not only enemy TTPs, but our own, our own forces TTPs. How do we do tactics, techniques, and procedures? I was at a facility one time, and I was briefing the general manager, and we were talking about shoulder-fired weapons. I said, well, there's a threat with shoulder-fired weapons. You have your things out here, your BREs, and it said, an RPG will just punch right through, 13 inches of homogenized steel. And so, and I remember he's like, come on, where are you going to get an RPG from? This is America. Oh, really? Yeah, well, tell that guy that went down to Radio Shack, got all the components and made 2 of them.
Yeah.
Tell that to one of my business associates who's got a license for explosives in 50 states, to include a license to build shoulder-fire weapons, who actually built an RPG replica out of stainless steel that actually fires projectiles using the model rocket motors. Right. It's pretty freaking scary. And I actually told him one day, I called him, man, it'd be cool if we had like an RPG simulator for our training. A week later, he goes, hey, will this work? I'm like, what? And I swear to God, it was amazing. Right. So think about that. If a guy has any knowledge on, working with, AutoCAD and stuff like that, and making stuff, if he can do it, anybody can do it. Right. That's got a little bit of knowledge on it. Right. So it's not hard to do. Making explosives, what are they all explosives? I tell you where to get it, in the kitchen, because you can make what they call HME, homemade explosives, right, with all in the kitchen with regular household chemicals.
Jesus.
There's TATP out there, triacetone triphosphate, right? It's a homemade explosive. It's actually a very common explosive. It's the one, that terrorists like to use. And, it is unstable, but from what I understand now, they've actually learned how to stabilize it a little bit. So then there's ETN, which is made out of erythrosol, which is the artificial sweetener, right? And it's another HME, right? That's actually starting to become in vogue. Listen, man, there's about 18,000 types of explosives out there, or variations of it. And, the ability to make them is there. You're not going to be able to stop that. And if I can make things that go bang, I can make things that go bang, that shoot things that go bang, right? So I mean, really, it's just chemistry.
There are people, there are channels on YouTube, these guys that have made rockets that I think they can reach like 2,000 feet altitude, and they can get close to the speed of sound, fired by sugar. They burn sugar. Like if you can find a fuel source, you can find something calorically dense, and that's your fuel source.
There you go. So again, this is where, having some knowledge and then being able to anticipate the paradigm is going to be where you make your money, right? The next hard part is convincing them that, what you're saying is true and accurate, and making them realize and make them understand the threat and what they need to do. A lot of them things, they don't know what they don't know. And sometimes what you tell them just seems so far-fetched in their mind because of limited experience that they won't even adopt it, right? And so as a consultant, I have to find myself, besides eating pancakes while I'm talking to you, is becoming a salesperson, right? I gotta show them, convince them why this is a problem. If I have to, I'll demonstrate it. So one of the keys to nuclear security, again, I'm not saying anything that's not known, is nuclear security really depends on time, on seconds. They only have a certain amount of time to respond to an alarm, to a threat, to multiple alarms, multiple attacks, right? All kinds of issues. But it always comes down to literally seconds. Literally seconds. And so one of the ways I made money in the nuclear industry, made good money, was I would sell the nuclear industry time. So how do I buy time from you? How do you give me more time? I said, I'm going to sell it to you. I'm going to make it for you, right? I'm going to create delays so you have more time to respond. And one of the things I was doing was I would look at their existing perimeter structures, defenses, or whatever they had, and go, okay, this only has a delay of about 15, 20 seconds. Now I would look at their response strategy. I said, okay, is that, you have a delay here, 20 seconds, a delay here, 10 seconds, right? Do all the math. Okay, cumulative, you've got about, 45 or 50 seconds before, the boogeyman is at the front door coming through it, right? And your response strategy requires this many seconds to get everybody in the right places. If the attack is here, if it's over here, then you got to shuffle and do it here, right? And then, there's other variables like communications. That's if everybody gets the word, gets the signal. There's a breakdown in communications, now there's another delay, right? And confusion. So I was like, so you need more time so that you can respond, right? Even if there's a snafu somewhere along the way, you still got time to recover. So I would take like for example, I would take like a fence, chain link fence. Go, okay, this is your chain link fence. All right, it's going to give you 10 seconds. All right, with bolt cutters or whatever. I'm going to go out and I'm going to give you another 45 seconds. So now you got 55 seconds just on that fence. Okay. Then what I would do is I would go to California to a range out there with one of my friends who's got a license for explosives. We'd order the explosives, all the building material. And what we would do is we'd build the fence, and then what we did is we added on to the fence, right? So we made the fence more robust so that it could withstand a menu of different types of breaching charges and explosives, whether it was bulk explosives, flying pickets, everything that was in the manual that I knew was possible for breaching. Well, what I had to do is think about, okay, can it withstand this much explosives of this type of charge that's still within the DBT? And so I would build these fortified fences. They were pretty damn scary, man. And I built them higher. I double tape, put double tape razor tape on it, double helix razor tape on it. Jersey barriers, 5,000-pound Jersey barriers. I created, and then within the design itself, there were components that were designed to completely defeat explosives, also, right? And then the whole design was also created so that it would collapse in on itself. So if you did breach any kind of a hole, it would just close up. It just closes up on itself again, like a Venus flytrap, right?
Yeah.
It's still screwed, right?
Yeah.
So I had some very unique projects that I did, and I did really well at that because we put several of our these systems we created, and they were never the same. It's just we had to customize it for every facility. But these were large dollar projects, and then on installation, I would have to come up and basically supervise installation, basically, train the pipe fitters and guys that were actually building this project. Okay, PPE, you got to wear leather gloves, leather coveralls, working with razor tape, and this is how it's got to be looked.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to also come back in and verify that the job was done right. So some very unique opportunities, and I would test all these capabilities. I would throw out every breaching charge that I thought was possible. And I would record it with several angles from cameras, and then I would write down a written report with the statistics on it. And I would give that to the client, go, okay, these are my findings. Okay. The system, this is what you got. This is what you can have. You can buy, I can sell you 45 seconds right now, but it's going to cost this much money, and that's what I did,
And I can sell you a minute
and then NRC would come in, and they always come in with a special forces team, the red team. And fortunately, I knew all these guys as well, right? Which is kind of funny. And so we're playing chess against each other, and they would come in, and I said, listen, guys, I set this up. You know what I know what you know, right? And so and they would look at it and go, yeah, that makes sense. We can't breach that. We might be Green Berets, but we're not, Superman.
Yeah.
And so, it worked out pretty good, right? Because now the design was validated. It was validated by their red teams, and so one of the facilities did a great job. it was actually 3 Mile Island. I'll give credit to the security manager at the time, Mike Brewitz. He brought me in and my company in for a long time. And we built every part of the security structure, every part of it, man, to include training their security officers on not only combat marksmanship training, but also on close quarter battle. If they had to recapture and recover, for example, the control room, they could actually go and come back and take it from the enemy, right? So it was like, oh, we're done. So we did a lot of that type of training and, the building the infrastructure and all that. And he brought in, I believe it was Discovery Channel or History Channel, one of those two. I think it was Discovery Channel he brought in. And they actually filmed everything we were doing, right? This was all deliberate. And it had, we had our shirts on, corporate shirts, and basically he told them, I got Delta Force guys and Green Berets here that are, building bolstering our security here. And basically what the idea was, this will go out on Discovery Channel and hopefully, Osama bin Laden will look at it and go, fuck, don't go to that plant. They got Delta guys there. Go to this one over here, right?
Yeah.
That was whole make himself basically, he's going to prove the world that he is actually doing, and he actually did. For him, it wasn't about the budget. It was about doing the right thing. Yeah. And he did the right thing, right? And so I'm very proud of 3 Mile Island and, at least what it was. I don't know what the state is today, but of the work that we did back then. So actually all the facilities I went to, I feel pretty confident that, we made them much, much better. And we made it much, much harder for anybody to think about breaching them. So nuclear powers are safe, so don't get scared. There's a lot of redundancy out there in the systems. And it's not easy to melt down a nuclear power plant. It's just not. And, they have a lot of backup systems to shut it down as quickly as they can. And in order for a nuclear power plant to go haywire, it would have to be a coordinated effort with, insiders, Confederates. A lot of things would be going wrong on the inside, as well. So
at that point, you have bigger problems.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's another issue, right? Another issue is, basically, how do you vet your employees and make sure that they're not? So this actually, I have knowledge of this, and I won't say when or who or what plant, but this was a while back. But there was one facility, they actually had a radicalized Muslim working in the facility. Okay. And he actually had been over to, I think Afghanistan and was training.
How the fuck does he get through? How does he fly?
That's the problem is, there is a way to get through the system, even though he was vetted. These are basically FBI background checks. So they're limited in their depth, right? As far as how much they can go chase around, right? Because they're expensive. And again, here we are, right? Nuclear power plant's got to dole out a shit ton of money just to vet their employees. There's a cost associated with that. And how good is it? It's not always good. And it doesn't even matter, right? Because you could get a guy in a facility. This is why we're seeing all these, all these mass shooters, right? Like going in a FedEx building, a post office. They work there. Now they're pissed off about something. They come back and shoot everybody, right? So it might have started off as a good employee because that's what everybody always said. Well, he's such a nice guy. He's so quiet. Yeah. And he never had a problem. Like, what happened, right? And so we don't know what's going on in people's freaking nugget up there. And it could happen in a nuclear power plant. You could get some guy could be working there and get the ass one day. He sees something on TV. Go, that's it. I'm going to get some revenge or payback, right? Now he's radicalized. And man, he could introduce all kinds of things into a facility to sabotage it and or to enable or facilitate an external attack, right? There's so many things that could happen. And so you're limited on, well, how far do you take security, right? There's a limit to the madness because at some point you can put so much security there that you're not even making a profit, right?
Yeah.
It's not even worth it anymore, right? So it's balance. It's always a balancing act. But I think sometimes we have too many rules in this country that when it comes to employment, equal opportunity, and blah blah blah, that it's almost like we're afraid to discriminate. Say you're not a good employee, you're not a good choice for this job. Oh, you're whatever. It's discrimination, right? So I think people are afraid of that as well. And and so the reality is, man, I think especially in these high risk facilities or high value targets like this, there has to be a really thorough background investigation, and maybe even some annual ones, follow up investigations, because you're entrusting employees with something could be just devastating to humankind, man.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, man, I mean, think about a nuclear power plant somewhere in the Midwest, and it freaking starts melting down, and all that radiation stuff starts going up into the Gulf Stream, and freaking it's going east around the world,
Yeah.
and we're sprinkling radiation everywhere. Or they're doing it. The Germans are doing it to us, or the Chinese are doing it to us, right? And Japan, right?
Yeah.
So, but actually, nuclear power plants are super safe, man. I feel very confident that, there's been a few that's melted down, but they're getting better and better and better. And again, I would rather have. I'm okay with nuclear energy. If you don't want to have oil, well, all right, put nuclear energy in my damn car, man. It's fine. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. So,
yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, that's my little thing on nuclear power plants.
Fuck yeah. Thanks, Dale. I've always been curious. To me, it's just wildly fascinating. And yeah, there is that trade-off, right? It's like the White House, right? The White House obviously has tiers of security, surveillance systems, bulletproof. I'm sure the walls are blast proof. They've got a little bunker right under there, under the front lawn. That's where Truman had one put in. But at a certain point, when you start getting to okay, the White House could probably stop, a 50 cal armor piercing. What about a JDAM? Well, the bunker could probably stop a JDAM. Okay, what about a bunker buster? What about a thermonuclear bunker buster?
Right.
But at a certain point, that's why they have just designated things where it's okay. Well, now we put the president in the helicopter. There's a bunker, 10 minutes away. That's 4,000 feet below rock. You can't, well, there is a way off, and that's not even a business. That's the president. So of course you're going to expend money. Now for me, I have some hard drives. I have some hard drives with all 426 episodes on them. That's 426 days of my life. That's a lot of work. I have them. They're wrapped in waterproofing. They're wrapped in an EMP bag that I got, and they're in a fireproof safe. There's no ROI on that. That cost about $2,000.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it's like, this is my well-being now. This podcast pays for my apartment.
Right.
I do have to sink a certain amount in, because if it's gone, I'm fucked. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not going to put it in a nuclear bunker that's going to survive a meltdown, because, if Dale wants to destroy my hard drives, Dale's going to come destroy my hard drives. He's going to put some P factor on that safe, and he's going to burn through it with some thermite. But, it gets, not that my hard drives are comparable to a nuclear power plant. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But, yeah, man, I appreciate it, Dale. I've always been interested in that. And have you, for whatever, I mean, I imagine if anyone would, it'd be you. Have you ever done any, like, work or been out to, like, NORAD? Would they bring you out there?
No, I've never,
Mountain?
No, I've never been out there, but I've been to a lot of those places, Area 51 and that whole area.
You've been to Area 51?
Well, not inside of it, all around it, on the outside of it, in the desert. There is some weird stuff that goes on out there, though. I can tell you, I saw something one night that was really bizarre, and there's no explanation for it. There was none. So basically, what happened was, I was in a military vehicle in the desert, and it's flat desert, except there was one like butte in front of us, right? And just one, though. It's just one in the whole damn desert. It didn't make any sense, but it's just one butte out there. And as we're approaching it, so I remember they told us, okay, we had to wear these what do you call it, radiometers, right? And so we had these things on, and they said, stay out of any area that has a small fence around it, has a berm that's usually like maybe 50 by 50 meters square, because that's where they lowered a nuke, for testing. And so, okay, so we're driving at night vision goggles, and somehow we drove through into one of these pits, right? And I don't know what happened, if the barbed wire was broken or what, but we stopped and all the dust settles, and we're like, we're looking around, and I'm like, oh shit, man, we're in one of these pits, right? And so, radiation particles, was the alpha,
beta, gamma.
Yeah, they lay just under the surface of sand, right? And it just can stay there forever. So we're kicking up dirt and dust and everything. Oh my God, right? So as I'm sitting there, I look at the butte, and on the backside of the butte, I see this light, like a super bright light, go up, like it's going up and just kind of hovering, right? Just kind of hovers, and I'm like, holy shit, what is that, right? And it wasn't a helicopter because we were close enough. If it was a helicopter, I could hear it. One aircraft just kind of came up and just bubbling around like this, and then we actually tried to drive around the backside to see what it was. It was gone, right? The butte was the same all the way around. There was nothing there. This thing just popped up behind it, and then as we started driving around it, it was gone, disappeared. And I can't even explain what that was, or it was not a flying machine from anything that human beings made, for sure. But it was a bright light. It was really, really weird. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, UFOs, baby.
Oh yeah, they're out there, man. I know they're out there.
They're 100% there, dude. I've had on former Air Force guys, drone operators, who talk about training out in New Mexico, and they're like, man, I remember driving back from like to the base one night from like the train, like the Connex boxes they have where they train. He's like, dude, we came back one, and these are like trained. These guys are the operators of it, right? The MQ1s, the MQ9s. And they're like, man, we saw like it looked like a star, but it like wasn't moving the whole night, and the rest of the stars are moving. And finally, like we had seen it kind of like in the evening, and as we're driving, we're still looking at it. We're like, there, that thing is what. And they said, I think they described it as like a spark coming off like a grinding wheel, like if you're sharpening a knife. They said like that. But it wasn't that it was quick. It just over the horizon. I mean, you do the math. It'd have to come out to like Mach 500. They were looking at it. They said they looked at each other and they're like, "Yeah, no one's gonna believe us. It doesn't matter.
Well, they're supposed to be publishing another report. Yeah, in June, right? Mm-hmm. And really talking about it. But already, man, I mean, there's stuff on there that the Air Force and others are confirming, like video image from pilots where they're literally flying obstacles that suddenly do right angle turns and are moving at Mach 50, I think. It's that any human aircraft, fighter jet with a pilot, maximum is Mach 17 or G's. And it said that anything faster would completely destroy the aircraft. The controls, of course, kill the pilot. Mm-hmm. And he said these things are making turns of 50 G's plus, incredible amounts of speed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's pretty intriguing. But it's starting to sound more and more that the government is like, okay. And I do believe that the government intentionally did not tell people, because can you imagine what would happen if, for example, Christians, all right, and true Christians believe that there's only one God, mm-hmm. There's only human beings, he made heaven and earth, right, blah, blah, blah. There's no other life. It's just Adam and Eve and us, right? Like that. Mm-hmm. So, there's always an argument that we won't find life anywhere else because God only created us. So what would that do to the narrative if they find life on another planet and or other life comes and visits us, right? Aliens. That would be a real problem for almost all religions, mm-hmm. Okay? And so if you have now all of a sudden, there's even, just think about the problems with, people, one, being in disbelief, two, the conspiracies and, oh my God, this is the devil has arrived, and all the issues that go with it, because most people are just naive, man. They're just gullible and they're fearful, and we're watching it play out in front of us every day. But I think they deliberately kept that information so that there is not chaos. But I think we're at a point now where, they're going to have to come out with it. And who knows, maybe it's part of a bigger plan, mm-hmm. But could you imagine if aliens just showed up today, like all of a sudden, like, in War of the Worlds, all of a sudden you start showing up, what that would do to the whole world, man, the whole system, the economies and everything, man. I mean, holy shit.
It would. Yeah. What I was going to say is, the right hand turns. There's only so many G's a human can stay conscious for. And then there's only so many G's that our materials can survive. Now, if we created drones, our drones could do maneuvers that pilots can't. But then even then, the metamaterial science is only so far to where it's like why they can't shoot. It's why they tried to in the 50s and 60s, Excalibur. They wanted to shoot satellites from a cannon, try to save on rockets. And the reality is it was 100,000 Gs to get to orbit. And they could, like a battleship is something like 10,000 Gs, and it just can't survive. What Commander Fravor said is when they was chasing the Tic Tac in 2004 off the USS Nimitz off San Diego, it went from a hovering standstill to over the horizon. They said even an SR-71 Blackbird going at Mach 3 still takes about 60 to 90 seconds to go from next to you to over the horizon. The X-15, fastest rocket or manned rocket jet that ever flew, went Mach 7. That would take a little shorter. This thing went in like 0.2 seconds. And then, with the Navy coming out with the USS Nimitz, and then more recently, the pyramid-shaped UFOs over the naval destroyers and stuff that the Pentagon is confirming. I mean, man, the Brookings Institute, that think tank in D.C., they came out with a publication, I think chartered or contracted or purchased, whatever, by NASA prior to the 1969 moon landing, but after JFK's speech saying we're going to go to the moon. The Brookings Institute came out and said, if you find remnants of an alien civilization, I swear to God, if you find remnants of another civilization on the moon, whether it's modern or whether it's archaic, an old fucking whatever on the far side of the moon, they said, do not disclose it, for it will crash the world economy and the world religions. And for whatever reason, they centered on Buddhism. They said the Buddhists would be most upset, which is kind of weird. But the point is they said that religions will collapse and the economy will collapse. And this is chartered by NASA in like 1964. Hey, if you find remnants of alien structures on the far side of the moon, just don't mention it.
Yeah.
And that just kind of never gets brought up, that was an actual concern of the chiefs of NASA. So I don't know, man. To me, I always look at the technological conspiracy. Yeah, that would probably crash the world's economy, but at the same time, we did eventually learn that the world isn't flat. We did eventually learn that, like, fires aren't from a vengeful God. It's just, you didn't put out your cigarette. I think the world will come to terms with it. I think there's an energy conspiracy. If you have something that got from another star system and came to our planet, that means it's got a really efficient energy source. That really efficient energy source completely negates the need for you to use gasoline and diesel. The petrodollar is the strongest power system in the world. Not nukes, not bombers. You have the world by the balls. You can turn off the gas at any given moment. If you have an alien thing show up with a faster energy source or a better energy source than that which ExxonMobil provides, hey, Uncle Sam's not in charge anymore. That's what I think it is. But we are now going way off into the weeds, Dale. We now have to do a UFO video. We have to do a UFO episode.
Actually, you're not off the weeds, because you started out talking about nuclear power plants.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And did you know that a lot of these sightings are around nuclear facilities and nuclear sites, right? There seems to be an interest, concentration on nuclear power plants, right?
Dale, I need to send you the episodes I've done with Larry Holcomb. He's this older gentleman in his I think 80s, author of Presidents and UFOs. It's a great audiobook, or just listen to that. But that's one of the big things is Minot, North Dakota, the ICBM base in I think Germany. They go to either nuclear power plants. The other interest of theirs is both in the Soviet Union and the United States, the UFOs, and this is all the classified shit from the Air Force, not me.
Yeah.
They go to ICBM silos and they would shut them down. And to them, it was them showing, hey, don't use nukes. Don't use nukes. That was their thing. And the other thing I always bring up is this is an analogy I use. When I was a freshman in high school, me and my friends were at his mom's house, and we were shooting, we were dipshits. We were shooting bottle rockets into people's lawns, lighting them on fire and stuff. Just a bunch of little 14-year-old assholes. And then, like, 20 minutes later, the cops came by, and we hid under his car, and we were looking out, and the cops went by with flashlights and stuff. So what was that? We were causing a disturbance. An amount of time passed, and the cops came by. They didn't come by to our exact house, but they came by to our nearby location, and they looked around. So keep that model in your head. What did we do on July 16th, 1945? We set off the Trinity A bomb in Alamogordo, New Mexico. August 6th and August 9th, we set them off in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, respectively. All right? What happened almost 2 years later, in July 1947, almost 2 years to the day later, was the Roswell sighting. How far is Roswell from Alamogordo, New Mexico? 119 miles. To me, that looks like there's a time distance, 2 years. They came really close nearby on the surface of the whole world, they came within 119 miles of everywhere else in the world. They came within 119 miles of where the nukes went off. Does that not look like the intergalactic cops coming by and shining a flashlight? Hey, what are you fuckers setting off? I don't know, man.
No, I've actually heard this. So, when we talk about metaphysics and you talk about energy, so the whole universe is energy. Everything is energy. Everything's interconnected, interrelated. And we talk what in my the stuff that I do. We talk about the unified intelligence of the world, and the theory is that there are aliens out there that do have a special interest in our use of nuclear weapons, because when nuclear weapons go off, the frequency from those weapons, right, will continue to propagate throughout the universe, okay, and will affect other systems, bigger systems that we don't even know of. But that's the theory, is like this would have a profound effect on the entire universe, not just on the planet Earth.
Yeah, it's well, I was gonna say Richard Rhodes in his book Dark Sun, Making of the Hydrogen Bomb, not with just atomic bombs, but with the big ones, the thermonuclear bombs. They have a neutron density, or a neutron flash, I'm too stupid to understand it, 10 million times denser than that of a supernova. So these are sending off flashes throughout the universe that are going forever. So I mean, this is like, again, bottle rockets, me and my friends shooting off bottle rockets. Well, we're waking up everyone in the neighborhood. We might be pissing off some doctor that has to get up at 5 a.m. And that's, someone said that in a documentary about UFOs. It was some physicist that said, it might have been Michio Kaku, who's like a super renowned Harvard physicist. He said, what we're setting off, he goes, we see the big bomb and the crater and the radiation and then whatever. He goes, we might be doing damage on like levels of reality that we don't even know exist. So, what we see as a nuke might only be 1% of the damage. We might be fucking up other people's worlds, and they're going, what the hell are you doing? And it might be going throughout the whole universe. We might be destabilizing countless civilizations, and they're going, who are these new guys on the block swinging their dick around, dropping nukes off? And it's, who knows, man, maybe they saw you going out there, Dale, and they looked at you as a threat, and that's why that little thing popped up, and they're like, who's this mother? We've been following this guy, Dale. He gets in trouble. We've leaved him alone, but now he's getting near nukes. Dale, we're cutting you off. We're cutting you off, Dale.
Yeah, man.
Well, now we have to we need to schedule that. You and I, Dale, we need to go full in on UFOs. I didn't know that you had an interest in them. So that.
Yeah, actually, I had a production company a few years ago wanted me to be a host on a show that basically Alien Hunters is what it was going to be. It never came to fruition, but
motherfucker.
Yeah, I thought that would be kind of cool,
I love them, and I love trying to approach them in an actual scientific manner, not just people, little green men. No, I try to look at them. I'm like, credible guys. I mean, Harry S. Truman, flying saucers, given that they exist, are not created by any power on Earth. Gerald Ford, I know UFOs are real. I've seen one. I mean, Jesus Christ. General MacArthur, World War III. Everyone knows the Einstein quote. I know not what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. General MacArthur has a lesser known quote. World War III will be an interplanetary war.
Yeah.
General MacArthur. No one ever talks about that. General fucking MacArthur. I mean, Jesus Christ. It just kind of slides right under the head, not Werner von Braun, but the guy below him. I think Arthur Rudolph of the Nazi rocket program said, and I'm going to butcher it, he said, aliens exist, UFOs exist, and they're scouting out our planet for either scientific intrigue, much like we look at, a new rock or a new lizard, and they're here watching us, but without a doubt in my mind, they're here and they're watching us. I mean, it's at a certain point, it starts to melt your brain. Like, but fuck yeah, Dale Comstock and I are going to do a UFO episode. Let's
do it.
Fuck yeah, man. Dale Comstock, I love you, brother. Everyone, go get his book, American Badass, which Dale, if he knows what's good, we'll get it narrated. We'll get it on Audible. I mean, goddamn, Dale, you need to do it, man. You need to do it.
Well, I'm in the process of writing these other books still.
I know.
I'll figure it out.
You got to figure it out. Dale Comstock, go get his book, American Badass. I'll put the training websites below here for his courses, and go follow his Instagram. It's always funny. I always love watching it. And yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. Dale Comstock, motherfucking American Badass. I'll see you next week, man.
All right,
All right, Dale. Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.